coach joins us, the Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Brian, let me start with this. We'll move on quickly from this, but this was a heated discussion yesterday. Better career, Adrian Peterson, Tiki Barber.
Wow. It's, at face value, you're talking about an Adrian Peterson who's top 3 all-time in yards per game with guys like Jim Brown and Barry Sanders, so it's hard not to go with those numbers. But I will say this. The overall impact, Tiki Barber was a 60, 70 catch guy as well. Yep. He was a 400-plus touch guy a couple times in his career. So, and not far behind in terms of the sheer running ability. So, if you throw in the total aspect of impact on and having faced him, of course, we faced him in our Super Bowl in 2000, the fact that he could hurt you out of the backfield as well. It's hard not to go with Adrian Peterson as a pure running back, but as a pure impact on the team, or if you had to choose one or the other, I'm not sure you wouldn't lean towards the Tiki Barber and his overall productivity.
All right. Now, today's question, since you coached both of them, you can start your team with Ray Lewis or Randy Moss.
Oh, boy. Wow. Yeah, that cuts to the heart of it, doesn't it, in terms of impact players. I think Randy Moss is the most dynamic talent we've ever seen in this league. Now, I don't know that he's the best football player we've ever seen overall, but in terms of sheer talent and the ability to take over a game, as Ray Lewis, again, you're talking about the nature of position and how much does an inside linebacker. Certainly Ray could dictate a game. But Randy Moss changed the way we play in this league. He would change the way coverage had to be held against him. Most freakish athlete we've ever seen in the history of this game.
You can start your defense with Ray Lewis or Ed Reed.
Wow. Oh, boy, you're testing me here. Ed was so dynamic in the back end. You can throw away from a shutdown corner, but it's hard to throw away from an impact safety like an Ed Reed and Eric Berry and Earl Thomas, and the impact that they have on a team. Ray's the emotional tenor that Ray set, and the tone that he set in terms of against our defenses, we're not going to run the ball. As much as I love the versatility of Ed Reed, it's hard not to lean towards Ray Lewis in that regard.
Yeah, I would take Ed Reed. I just think that he cleaned up a lot. Whenever he made a big play, it became even bigger because he could take it. He could run it back. I'm a huge Ed Reed fan, and I know you coached both of them, and both were great players.
And people forget, and I'll throw in to back up what you're saying. Unbelievable punt blocker. Unbelievable in what he could do in turn. A lot of people don't, that's not the real focus when you think about Ed Reed, but he was a dynamic force on special teams as well.
All right, the week 1 reaction, the proper reaction, a lot of it seems overreacting because we don't know what trends are going to take place. But what do you think is the proper reaction, the one reaction maybe or 2 reactions that you think are going to play out the rest of the year?
Well, that's what the first week is about, isn't it? When you look at a team like, say, Minnesota and New Orleans. Was Minnesota really that good? Is that something we should get excited about? Or is that New Orleans defense really that bad? If you look at Kansas City and New England, New England's going to bounce back, and they're playing New Orleans, and what a great defense for them to kind of rebound against. But is Kansas City, if indeed that explosiveness, we know they're efficient. Alex Smith was 22 of 24 and throws under 10 yards, and they played great defense. We're used to that. But if that explosiveness shows up on a consistent basis, then that changes the price of poker in the league. So we'll find out in the next year or in this next week whether that is something that can continue on. We saw some pretty good defenses being played. I can't think of a better game, a must-win, all but in week 2. How about that? Week 2 in the NFL, you got to have a must-win for Cincinnati and Houston. The loser of that game is going to have a tough slog going the rest of the way.
He's Brian Billick, NFL Network analyst, joining us, Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Do teams tank in the NFL, Coach?
No, I don't believe that. And I know we get to the end of the season and people will talk about this team or that player quit. I don't think that's the case now. I will say this. To play in the National Football League, which is the most elite level of this sport, in order to compete on a regular basis, you have to be at your steely-eyed best. And if you're not, then you're not going to look good. If you're just that step less, just that little bit of less focus, then you're gonna look back. You're gonna look like you're quitting. And I don't know that that's necessarily someone quitting as much as it is not playing up to the level that this league demands that you play every single week.
At what point, with Andrew Luck being out and continuing to be out, do you then say, let's shut him down? Let me say your front office here, your owner, Jim Irsay, at what point do you say it's not worth bringing him back? How many games? How many weeks?
I think looking at that football team, I think that decision may have already been made. They're not a very good football team. And I don't think it has to be a matter of, well, can they salvage a win or two here and get to the point we're going, well, if you have Andrew Luck back, maybe we can be pretty good. Certainly if you run into that second, third, fourth loss in a row, what would you bring him back for? What is the purpose other than to give the fans something to cheer about? And that's going to be a tough one to do. But why would you expose Andrew Luck to that, depending upon the severity of the injury? And, the question I always had from my doctors, could he hurt this worse? And if they could, then that's a very easy decision. If not, then sure. I'm sure he wants to come back and play. But, boy, Indianapolis just does not look like a good football team, with or without Andrew Luck.
Do you think the Colin Kaepernick story continues each week because of the bad quarterbacking play, that with him on the outside looking in, that this is just going to be, continuing dialogue about should he be on a roster?
Yeah, absolutely, because particularly as teams begin to struggle at the quarterback position. Now, not that he's going to make a difference. I think if he were to come back into the league, and I'm one of those, notwithstanding the extracurricular things that people are talking about, that certainly are a factor. I think a lot of people don't sign Colin Kaepernick because they're not sure whether he can contribute to the team. But given the poor quarterback play, someone's going to end up signing him. I don't think he'll make a big difference with them, but someone will sign him.
What would be the one question as a coach that you would want Colin Kaepernick to answer?
Is this important to you? Is this, and we all have a lot of things going on in our lives. And that's not to diminish the things that are important to him and that he's made public. I thought when Baltimore was flirting with the idea of bringing Kaepernick in, it was interesting to hear Joe Flacco. I did the Baltimore's preseason game, so I was around a little bit more. And when that whole thing stirred up, it was interesting, kind of subtle between the lines what Joe Flacco said. He said, we'd love to have Colin Kaepernick here. If he wants to come in, work hard, and have fun. And I thought that was an interesting way to phrase it, basically saying we'll support you as a teammate, but some of that stuff you need to keep at arm's length from here in the clubhouse. I thought that was an interesting comment. And so, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with it. I'm one of those that believes that certainly that is a factor, but I think the main reason people aren't signing him because they question where he is, both in terms of his abilities to play quarterback in the NFL right now, that clearly denigrated over the last couple of years, some of it not his fault, and the fact of just where is football as a priority for you. And if it's not, that's okay too. If these other things are a higher priority for you, that's great. God love you. But if I'm going to bring you on my football team, I want to know where football places in your priorities.
Brian, good to catch up with you again. Thank you for joining us.
Sounds good.
But Brian Billick, NFL on Fox, Continental Tire, Coach's Corner. Continental Tire, the official tire of Major League Soccer. And soccer fans expect peak performance on the pitch and also demand peak performance on the street. That's why Continental has built a tire for what you do, whether you're heading to the game or you want to go off-roading. Best-in-class, wet braking, superb handling. Continental Tire, proud supporter of the Dan Patrick Show. Visit ContinentalTire.com for more.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.